Hello and welcome to Records Rebuilds. Well, if you didn't know it yet, one of the first rules of working on cars is that if you get too many projects, your daily driver is gonna break, or in this case, your wife's daily driver. That's our Chevy Equinox over there. Wife was driving it the other day and she called me and she said, when I go around corners, I hear crunching sounds down by my feet. And sure enough, that was the transfer case going out, which is fairly common on these cars. The last few times I've changed the fluid in the transfer case, I've seen shards of metal in there, so I knew it wasn't long for this world. But once I got it up on the lift, just actually you can see the spot right there, that line right there. I guess it blew out the side of the transfer case or something, because right here, Gorilla was just gushing down from here when I got the thing on the lift. My wife made it all the way back home actually without having that happen, but yeah, so we are going to change this transfer case so that we can get back to the Suburban project and the 66 Corvette project, because my wife's having to drive the 1992 Jeep Cherokee, which is an awesome vehicle, but maybe not the best family vehicle in 2023. First step here will be taking out the exhaust and the catalytic converter that's on this side of the engine. So we've been soaking those nuts there for a few days with Croil oil. That's a good penetrating oil, and yeah, let's get that exhaust out of there. Okay, so we've been oiling these nuts here for several days, and the very first step of this project is giving us some trouble. So first thing for us to do is to heat these nuts up. And I did nothing except strip out that bolt, or nut, so that's great. Great job, Records. Alright, so we finally got the one on this side to come loose, but of course I was not filming. And that's bolt number 2, or nut number 2 that we've gotten off. Okay, so I've got the front 2 bolts out up there, but these ones just will not come. And now I'm to the point where the bolts and the nut are spinning freely inside the flange up there. So we're gonna have to cut these suckers out. Okay, so as you can see, we've got one of them out, but we're still grinding away at the other one. You can see here, just grinding away at this nut and bolt until we get it all the way out of there. And that's a painful, tedious process, but it's the only way to get it done. Alright, so now that we've got the exhaust out, the next step is to take our drive shaft out. So we've got it marked with all sorts of yellow tape. Actually, I'll move this one over to here just because we want to make sure we got everything lined up the way it's supposed to be. And we'll pull all these bolts out, and then we'll pull the bolts off of this carrier bearing here, and we'll take it out. ignition fluid. It's a 10mm bolt. Okay, so the first thing we do is we attach this tool you can rent at your local AutoZone. Attach it to the lug nuts here, and we use it to push back. Let's see if we can get a little light in there. Push on this shaft here. You want to separate the drive shaft from the spindle unit here. That's the first thing we've got to do.
Seems to be getting easier. Well, it was. Still not real hard, but.
Alright, so we've gotten it so we can see a lot of spline in there, so we know the drive shaft's coming loose, but I don't know, Dad and I both feel like it'd be a lot better to get this loose so that it could go out that way, so we're not just pushing this drive shaft in towards the transfer case, just because we don't know what that'll cost. So we're gonna go skip a step here. We're gonna take these off here and this off here and get the lower trailing arm loose so that we can get this ball joint loose here, and then we'll finish pressing that drive shaft out of there. So our next task, it was putting a lot of pressure on here, so we decided before we get this drive shaft the rest of the way out of the spindle, we are going to get it detached totally first. So the first thing we're going to do is separate this lower ball joint here, and in order to do that, we need to get some space in here so that we can get the General Motors part that's supposed to do that in there. And to do that, we had to pull our lower control arm off down here. So we'll get that off there, and then we'll press the drive shaft the rest of the way out. I wish I hadn't filmed this in time-lapse, but I did. So basically we used the ball joint tool to put a lot of pressure on that, and then we heated it, and all of a sudden the ball joint just popped loose with a huge clank as soon as it got hot enough. Alright, one thing that we didn't film here is our outer tie rod here. You can see you can put a wrench right on here, and then you can put another wrench here, and that'll allow you to get that loose real easy. Once that is loose from right here, you can just hammer upwards on this right here, and that'll get it out of there real easy for you. Then we finish pressing the drive shaft out of the spindle and kind of set it to the side like this. Alright, so now that we've got our drive shaft out of the way, we've got our outer tie rod loose, and we've got our lower control arm, or you could do it just by pulling the ball joint out there. Now that we've got that all out of the way, we've got to pull our drive shaft here, and we do it by gripping onto that rusty thing back there with this tool right here, and that tool is Kentmoore, Kentmoore, tool number J-45341. That's J-45341. J-45341. You can probably find a different way to do it. You know, you could try to pull it out of there. Here's $70 on eBay. So I understand if that's a little bit too much, but the good news is I don't have the Chevrolet puller, but the threads are the same on the AutoZone slide hammer. They fit right, you can see they fit right into here, the threads do. So just go down to AutoZone and get yourself their standard slide hammer, and then we've got to take this part here, we've got to fit it to that drive axle up there. Okay, so as you position this tool, there is a slant to those threads there, so you want to position it this way so that the slide hammer will be pointing off in this direction instead of a more central angle. So this is going to go on this side, and then the U-bolt is going to go on the opposite side. Alright, so now you can see we've got everything all hooked up here, and this is our Kentmoore tool right here. And so we'll slide our slide hammer right into here, thread it in, and then we'll start pulling, hopefully get that axle to release from there real easy. Okay, so now we're all hooked up. Show them how the slide hammer is going to move, Dad. And it's coming right out.
Is it?
Yeah.
You got a hold of it?
I do.
This is something you need safety glasses.
So guys, boy, that just made really short work of it. You can see right through there, we didn't really even have to hit it very hard at all. Just a few whacks with the slide hammer. And you can see it came right out of there. Just made a very difficult job very easy. So I highly recommend the Kent Moore tool if you can afford it. And if you can't, there's still probably another way to figure out how to do it. Okay, so this next step is a little tricky. We need to take this mounting bracket right here out of here. This needs to come out. This needs to come out. This needs to come out. There's another one right around the corner there that needs to come out right there. And then this one right here needs to come out. And this one right here needs to come out. And those are the 6 bolts that get the transfer case mount out of there. And as you can see, this is the bracket that we're trying to take out of there, and there are 6 bolts in those exact positions. Then you're going to take this little heat shield off of here. There's some 8mm bolts, one right there, one right there, and one right there. And just pull that piece off. Alright, so we were really hoping to get this job done without pulling the catalytic converter, but that is not going to work. It needs to come out of there so that we can get the bolts out of the side of the transfer case that go into the transmission. And we can't get those bolts out there unless that catalytic converter's out of there. So thankfully, these nuts have not been frozen solid. And what you gotta do is, you gotta take an impact with a really long extension on it. And what we've been doing, at least for the first 2, is, let me see here. Okay, you can see that there. So you take your arm, go up around here, and that gets you to the bolts on the top. This one that's right here, we're going to try to get with a wrench that goes up through here. And then the one on the far side, we actually should be able to get by going through here again. So that's what we're going to try to do. Okay, so now that we've got our catalytic converter out of here, it's time to get this transfer case out of here. So we're gonna get these bolts off right here, but those bolts connect to right there, which is the rear transmission support. And so we'll drop half the transmission if we just pull that out of there. So we've got to use a transmission jack here to hold the transmission up so that we can disconnect those, get the transfer case out, and not have the transmission slump down in here. Okay, so see this lowest point right here? We're just going to put a 2x4 in there so that we can not lift it by that, but we're just going to push this jack upwards like this. And we've leveled it out so everything's level, but we're going to push it up until everything is just like we think it should be, where it's supporting that nice and easy. And then we can take these bolts out and pull this transfer case off of here. Okay, so now we have to take out the rear transmission bracket bolts. So that is going to be 1, 2, and 3. 2 of them in those holes. There's those 3 bolts right there. Are going to have to come out. This one has to come out because that goes into the transfer case. And I think actually this one's going to have to come out too, because we need to be able to pivot this thing out or up in order to be able to get this out of here. So we'll get to work on that. Okay, so I found out we had to take out all the bolts we talked about, plus this huge bolt here, which lets you get a little bit of play right here. And then I think what we really need is these bolts and this bracket out here, and that'll finally free it up so we can get that thing out of there. So yeah, sorry I couldn't show you really easily. But this is sitting in there like that. You pull these two bolts out, that comes loose, and then all of a sudden your bracket, which had been really hard to move, is now just totally free. It's really a pretty cool system. It's really easy to get out of there if you know how to do it. So now our transfer case is totally free except for these two bolts right here. So we're going to pull those bolts, then we're going to pull the transfer case out, bring it down, and then the new one goes in. Okay, so our old transfer case is finally out, and our new one is ready to go in. Brand new unit straight from General Motors. And they want you to check everything up here, make sure there's no rust or oxidation. You have to bust it off with a right wire brush if there is, but we don't see any of that, so it looks good. Then there are these bolts right here. You can see these are just bolts that I've cut the head off of. There's one that screws down here at the bottom and one that you screw in at the top. And the whole purpose of these is they're going to guide your transfer case into place so you don't mess this up, and in particular mess up this rubber seal on the new unit there. Okay, so as you can see, you put those pins in just like this. And then what size are they? They are M12 by 1.75 millimeter by 75 millimeter. The only ones I could find on Amazon were 80 millimeter for the last dimension there, but they fit just fine, and I think this will work out just fine.
There it goes. I don't know why I won't hop in.
Hold on. Don't damage it.
It went in further that time. There we go. A little bit tighter, 1/8 an inch. There you go.
Touch it now?
Yes, touch it.
Great!
As far as I can tell, it's touching. You might want to shine a flashlight. Well, those things spin easy.
Yeah.
That one does, anyway. I figured it'd have some weight on it. You got it, you think?
I used the wrong one, but yeah, I think eventually I got it.
I mean, you're not worried about it falling out. That's
No, it can't fall out now. I got one big bolt in.
Well, if nothing else, it's hanging on all those gear sets and everything else.
Woohoo! New transfer case. Okay, so don't do what I did, which is to leave the top pin in there. That makes it a lot harder to get the upper or the rear transmission mount up in there. But once you've got that cleared out of the way, you just slide the thing in position like that, and you're good to go. Okay, so one thing that is always going to be different about a video from Records Rebuilds is that we're going to do torque specs for everything. So that caused me to run into something really strange with this car, because I was using a manual from a 2014 Equinox, and in that manual it said 81 pounds, 81 pounds, 81 pounds, and then 81 pounds down here. And I think 36 pounds for these two here. So I was tightening down one of these bolts in here, and I could just feel the bolt lengthening. And that was very disconcerting to me. So I pulled it out, and I called up the Chevy dealer, and they were kind enough to tell me the torque specs. And it turns out somehow between 2014 and 2016, they totally changed. And these three bolts here, there, and up there, those three bolts are now all torque to spec bolts. So you tighten them down to 74 pounds, and then you turn them another 90 degrees, and that's how they work. I still did this one to 81 pounds right here. But yeah, so that was something that I was very disturbed to discover. So we had to buy new bolts, because torque to yield bolts you only use one time because they stretch when you put them in. So now we're going to put them in here. Again, 74 pounds, 74 pounds, 74 pounds. I believe these are 46 here. Okay, so this is the torque to yield bolt that came out of our rear transmission mount. There are 3 of them. And the new part number, because you can't reuse them, from General Motors is 11589280. But you'll note when that part comes, same thread pattern, same length, same diameter, a little bit skinnier flange right here. But the old bolt has a 13 millimeter head, and the new one has a 16 millimeter head. So that's a weird difference that I can't really account for. But I think it'll work just fine, so let's try it. Okay, so we've got a mark here that we drew with a Sharpie marker that'll help us determine where 90 degrees is. But we'll go up in here. We'll just start, I guess, with the easiest one because it's really hard to get a camera in here. And we're torquing this down again to 74 pounds. So that's 74. So now let's find our mark. There we go. So you can just see that mark there and turn it another 90 degrees. I don't like that. It's hard for me to see it right there. Yeah, that's a better view. Okay, I'm gonna have to shut this off, but you get the idea. Okay, so that all went pretty well. Nothing broke off, and indeed these are 46 pounds here, so we're gonna tighten those down next. Okay, so this is the transfer case brace, and it goes out on the lateral edge of the transfer case. You can see it goes kind of like up like that. These holes right here and right here, those holes are for bolts that go into the hole there and there. And it's easier to show you the torque specs while it's out of the vehicle. So the 2 bolts that tie it to the transfer case are here and here. Those will be torqued to 37 pounds. There is one weirdly large bolt right here that will also be 37 pounds. The remainder of them, which will go here, here, and here, will all be torqued to 17 pounds because they are much littler bolts. So yeah, that's how you put that thing in there. Okay, so now we have it in place. I had held it up the wrong way earlier. You can see, you know, it goes on just like this. There is an order that you want to tighten these. These 2 here are first. As we said before, they go to 37 pounds. Then comes this one down here, that goes to 37 pounds. And then this one up here, this kind of hidden one over here, and this one down here are tightened down to 17 pounds. Okay, so this is probably overkill and you don't have to do it, but I'm going to use this tool here to clean off the mating surface on the engine for my catalytic converter so that I make sure it seals really well. So we'll just go up like this to there and get that all brushed off. So we'll use this same wire brush to clean off the flange on the top of the catalytic converter. Just, you know, run it all around here till it's all bare metal again. Okay, so now we're going to put our catalytic converter on. This is a bright, shiny, new gasket for that. And if you look here, you can see this was the side that was closest to the engine block. There are these little tabs on here. There's kind of 2 layers to this. I don't think it probably matters at all which side, whether you put it this way or this way. But if you want to put it on the way that mine was on from the factory, these little tabs, there's kind of 2 sheets of metal here. The sheet that has the tabs goes closest to the engine block. So we'll go up through here. As you can see, if you have this car, no one will ever steal your catalytic converter, because that would be impossible. Okay, so after you've got that gasket in there, you're going to put your catalytic converter up in there, and you're going to need to hook up your O2 sensors when you do that. Just right up through there. Okay, so as you can see, our catalytic converter cannot fit up in there if all 4 studs are installed. So we're just installing the top 2 studs, and then we're going to install our gasket here. Okay, so if you stick your head up through here, you can see the nuts for the catalytic converter. And you're going to stick your torque wrench up like that. First pass is going to be 15 pounds on all 4 of them. Second pass is going to be 34 pounds on all of them. And that should get it tight. And then don't forget to put your heat shield back on. Okay, so now you can see we've got our heat shield on, and we've got the nuts on above it, and we're going to torque them down to 34 pounds as well. And then we'll be done with this stinking catalytic converter. Okay, so the next thing we got to do is put our front axle in this space between here and here. Let's pull it out then. Can you hold this?
Yeah, I guess. There you go, make away now.
You'll see me removing the stabilizer link here to get more room so that I can bring the spindle out wider and get the axle in there. Once you get the axle in there, I did not get a good picture of it, but obviously you need to tighten the big nut on the outside of the spindle that attaches to the outside of the drive shaft. As you tighten that down, it will press the drive shaft into the spindle and the bearing there, and you're going to tighten that to 151 pounds. Okay, so I tried to record this, but it didn't go all that well. The lighting wasn't all that good, and everything's really awkward. So, first things first is you put the drive shaft in here, and that's how it looks when you're in far enough, right around there. So then we're talking torque specs on these bolts. Now, hopefully you didn't have to take the lower control arm off, but I did. These bolts here are 52 pound-feet. This big bolt here depends on what your option package is. If you have the FE1 suspension, it's 85 pounds plus 90 degrees, so you turn 90 degrees more after you get to 85. I think they do recommend replacing this bolt. I did not. You should if you're doing this type of a job. Then there's the FE2 suspension, which is what this car has. You torque it down to 140 pound-feet. And then there's the FE3 suspension, which is 107 pound-feet. You torque it down to 107 pound-feet on this front bolt on the lower control arm. Then we've got our lower ball joint nut right there. That is an 18mm nut, and it is supposed to be torqued down to 30 pound-feet. But as you can tell, you really can't get a torque wrench in here, and in fact, you can't even fit a wrench you know, closed-in wrench on there once this is up where it's supposed to be. So I just took an 18mm wrench and got it about as tight as I could get it, and that was right where the hole for the cotter key was. Put the cotter key through there, and that's how I did that. But technically that should be 30 pound-feet. Then we've got our tie rod end. Basically put a, it's either a 7 or 8mm wrench on that. Tighten this down until it gets tight, and then you want to tighten that to 44 pound-feet. 44 pound-feet is the torque spec on the tie rod end. Okay, and then the stabilizer bar link right here. It has a hole for an Allen wrench right down here, so you can use that and tighten it a little bit at a time until it grabs. Once you get it cinched down, it is 63 pound-feet. I did not have to undo the stabilizer bar when we were taking the car apart, but I did have to when we were putting it back together because I couldn't get the axle where it's supposed to be unless I pulled that stabilizer link there. Alright, so I got down here and it turns out that this transfer case came from General Motors, already filled. But if you needed to fill it, you would fill it through here, you would drain it through here. Those are both 29 pound-feet if you need to tighten them. Okay, so we're going to take our, I think it's a mid-pipe. We've got new gasket there, new gasket there. We've cleaned off the old gasket from this flange here. Put a new gasket in just a second. And we'll hook it up to the catalytic converters. Remember, you need to plug in your front O2 sensor here. Okay, so just finishing up all the torque specs here. These are 36 pounds. These are 38 pounds. These are 38 pounds. These are 25 pounds. These are 19 pounds. And these are 37 pounds. One last thing. Make sure you don't forget to fill the transmission up, of course. Transfer case too, if yours isn't filled already. Alright, so car's back together. Everything seems to be running fine. Let's put it in gear and see if we messed up. And it looks like we did just fine. Thanks for watching, guys.